All right, good evening, everybody. I call to order the March 22nd, 2021 Board of Education meeting for Hazlitt. You'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to
and
the republic for which it stands,
stands,
one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. And I will do a quick roll call just to account for all members participating virtually this evening. Treasurer Byrd.
Here.
Trustee Collins.
Here.
Trustee Mashad.
Here.
Trustee Maury.
Here.
Vice President Polverento.
Here.
Secretary Wheeler.
Here.
All right. We will start with the superintendent's report. Mr. Cook.
Thank you, President Lemmer. I do not have anything specifically to comment on this evening, but I will talk a little more about our responsive return to school plan under discussion items when that comes up later on in the meeting. So that's all I have.
All right, very good. Thank you. We do have a guest for our first discussion item this week. And I believe we have a Chelsea Roberts. Chelsea, if you could raise your hand, then we can find you and Mr. Casson can unmute you.
Hi.
There we go.
I'm here as backup. Alex Brace is our executive director, and so he's actually going to do the report.
Wonderful. Alex, if you could raise your hand so we can find you. Actually, he's real close to the top, Jeff. There we go. Welcome, Alex. You are unmuted and you have the floor. Welcome to the Hazlitt Board of Education.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to come and speak in front of all of you. Again, my name is Alex Brace. I'm the executive director of the Small Talk Children's Advocacy Center. Small Talk is a nationally accredited nonprofit that operates in Ingham and Eaton counties. We work with law enforcement professionals, medical professionals, prosecutors, and children's protective services to help investigate and coordinate investigations of the crime of sexual and severe physical abuse for children ages 3 to 18 in Ingham and Eaton counties. So child abuse is unfortunately a very rampant problem and concern, not only, across our country, but, right here in our own backyard. It's, a silent epidemic. It's something that people don't feel comfortable talking about, which is one of the reasons why opportunities like this to come and talk in front of, professionals and leaders in our community as yourselves is so critical for us. 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be abused before the age of 16. So if you think about, the student population that you have in Hazlitt, it's a large portion of the students who are going to be impacted by this really devastating crime. One of the things that I know was really shocking for me when I started at our agency just was the prevalence of child abuse. And I think what is really, shocking for a lot of people is they don't know what to do when a child comes up to them and discloses that something is going on at home. They don't know what the right things are. It's something that none of us are really trained to do or know exactly how to approach it in the way that's going to be best for the child and for the investigation. So if as a community, we can educate ourselves as adults to be the ones to do that intervention and make sure that children feel safe and feel comfortable and confident that they can come to us and know that they'll be believed and trusted, and that we can have the honor of carrying that story and helping them heal through this. That's what we want to be a part of. That's what we want to do. So one of the things that we want to do by addressing, the Hazlitt School Board today is to ask for your assistance in our Pinwheels for Prevention program. So April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. It's a really important month for us as an organization. We are trying to spread the word as much as possible about how to intervene when children are being abused or when it is happening. Making sure that the public is educated on what kind of steps need to be taken so that we can minimize the harm done to any child who's impacted by abuse as well as their families. So there are sort of 3 ways that we're asking the public to join us, in this mission. The first is through donations. So we are inviting the public to make a suggested donation of $25 for a pinwheel kit. So within this pinwheel kit, you get 10 pinwheels, some education written for adults and for children on how to prevent and respond to child abuse. You'll get a small yard sign, as well as, some materials about small talk as well. So as we're, it's great weather today, so as we're able to kind of get out and walk around our neighborhoods, being able to put these pinwheel gardens in, our front lawns, and then, engage in conversation with our neighbors, which I know is, few and far between these days, but hopefully we're on the upswing and things are getting better, where we can have these conversations openly with other people in our community, so the taboo nature of this crime can just be, obliterated at some point. So it's, a lot easier for us to uncover and address. So the second piece is education as well. So one of the things that we do as an organization is we provide training for any kind of entity. So schools are a great place, a great opportunity to educate adults on how to prevent and respond to child sexual abuse in particular. But we can take these kind of trainings to churches, community groups, sports leagues, anywhere that adults are interested in protecting children. We can be there to assist and provide that training and expertise. These can be 15-minute presentations. They can be 2-hour professional development trainings that we provide. We just want people to know that that's an option. If you want to take advantage of that in April, great. But child abuse prevention is a year-round thing. So anytime that you would be interested in that, we are happy to provide that to anybody who may be interested. And then the last piece is volunteering as well. So one of the things we're doing with all of these pinwheel gardens is we're planting them all across Ingham and Eaton counties. We've got a lot of them set up. So if you're interested in planting one like in a park or at your school or somewhere else, we definitely want to be a part of that. And if we can assist in, arranging for volunteers to come out, or, we want to come out ourselves and help plant. I know our staff is always game to plant some pinwheels anywhere in the community that any way we can provide some more awareness, we want to be a part of that. So, in conclusion, as, leaders in your district, I really encourage you to help spread awareness for child sexual abuse. This is a really important piece of, not only the work that we do, but the community as a whole. We want to be able to spread hope, healing, and, have children receive justice for the crimes that happen to them, and we want to make sure that they're safe. And we can't do that without the community support. So even just being able to come and speak with you today, is a step in the right direction, and we hope that this is something that we can build upon. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has, but just once again, want to thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of all of you tonight.
Thank you very much for being here, Alex, and for sharing that very important information.
Yes. Well, one other thing, if I can just real quick.
And I think some of our board members have questions for you as well.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure this is, for whatever reason, I always forget this, but it's really, really important. If you want to learn more about our programming and our pinwheel program, you can go to smalltalkcac.org/prevention for all the materials and information on that. But yes, I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Greg M., I think I saw you.
Yeah, I think Alex answered my question there, but who's the contact person there, Alex, that we reach out for the volunteering opportunities?
Yeah, so that's going to be Chelsea, who's also on the call. So she is our the master of our pinwheel campaign right now. So she's the person to reach out to.
Okay, and then just a follow up to that question here. During this past year here, and the move to the virtual environments across all these school districts, and have you guys any partnership with the school districts across the state, or law enforcement across the state, to see what kind of increases that potentially might be occurring as a result of kids not being in school? Can we draw any correlations to seeing some of those spikes?
Definitely. I think we can see across the country that reporting is down, which is not a good sign. This is already an underreported crime. So the fact that it's being reported even less now, I think, is just indicative of the fact that children are not able to be in schools with those mandated reporters who are the ones who lots of times get the ball rolling as far as like making sure that children are safe. So without access to those mandated reporters that children have had, historically in the time that I've been, at Small Talk, we've seen our numbers kind of decrease. But I think as children continue to as things open up a little bit and children are able to go back to school at some point, or, we kind of all get our bearings over this virtual format and how to navigate it. I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a pretty significant increase in cases, as time goes on. Children will disclose when they're ready to disclose. There are some kids that disclose immediately after a crime has occurred. And there are some kids who, for whatever reason, wait 6-10 years to be able to tell. So I think what's happening right now is we're unfortunately in this really terrible spot where abuse, this is kind of like the perfect storm of where abuse can happen. Children are isolated in homes. They're not able to, leave as readily. They don't have access to the professionals who can help to keep them safe. So it's unfortunately a really, perfect recipe for some really severe abuse to happen. But
I'm going to jump in too, Alex. Save the Children International, which is based in the UK, did a global report about COVID, and I'm quoting it from memory, so you might have to go back and look at it. But I want to say that the parents they surveyed, about 25% said that they had increased their positive parenting methods or found new good ways of parenting during COVID. But about 3/4 of the parents said that they had increased their negative or could be potentially violent parenting methods during the pandemic. So that's on a global scale. It's not necessarily everything, but that does kind of just give a little bit of data to what Alex is sharing as well.
Alex, I had a quick question. You talk about you serve Ingham and Eaton counties. Do you have a partner organization that serves, Clinton or Shiawassee? We have some of our families that actually cross the county borders. So just wondering if we'd still work with you or if we'd work with those partner organizations as well.
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. So we are what's called a Children's Advocacy Center. So we are one of 33 in the state of Michigan. So a lot of them are county-based or regionally based. So our county or our agency covers Ingham and Eaton counties. There is a Clinton County Children's Advocacy Center and a Shiawassee. It's Shiawassee and Genesee. Their resources, but they're their own entity as well. So, depending on where you go, we're all accredited by a national organization. So depending on where you go, our resources are going to maybe be a little bit different, but the services that you get are going to be pretty similar wherever you go. So what determines where a child gets served is where they live and where the crime happened. So if it's a child where, that maybe goes to school in Hazlitt, but lives in Clinton County, likely it's going to be that Clinton County Advocacy Center that's going to be the one to serve them. But if the crime happened in Ingham County, it would be with us. And sometimes it's dependent on location too. Sometimes it's just more convenient. Maybe they live closer to here, but it happened in Clinton County. So, we have the great thing is we have this network across the state where we can share those resources. So if there's a child that moves or, location is difficult for them, we can kind of fill in those gaps for each other.
Thank you.
Great questions, everyone. Anyone else? Well, I know Alex and Chelsea, you're both very busy people, especially gearing up for April, which is Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. So we wish you the best in all of your efforts, not just in April, but all year round, because as we know, unfortunately, these issues affect our children 12 months of the year. But we appreciate having a great organization like yours available to our children and our families, as well as our teachers and other professionals working with them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Great. And you're welcome to stay, of course, but I don't expect you to.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So Mr. Cook, we'll have you talk about the status of our current responsive return to school plan.
Thank you, President Lemmer. Just a few things I'd like to comment on this evening. Today, we were happy to welcome students back for the first day of added in-person learning. Thanks to all our staff for their hard work necessary to make this happen for our students. It was truly a team effort. So thanks to all our staff who worked really hard to make this happen. Principals reported today went very well. It was great to see some new faces for the first time. The morning drop-off was very busy as expected. Many more parents are transporting their students than normal. I would ask parents to be patient as it will take a little longer than normal to get through the drop-off areas. And we will be making adjustments to our procedures as necessary. And hopefully it should become smoother as parents get more familiar with the drop-off routines. We had parents that were at our school for the first time dropping off kids. So it takes a few days to get all the routines down. So please be patient as we move forward into this plan. Today, we welcomed about 1,600 students back into the classroom. This represents about 62% of our enrollment, with about 960 students or 38% choosing to remain virtual the rest of the school year. And this is up from 53% in person, 47% virtual prior to entering this phase. We were able to add about 210 more students back in person from virtual learning. And we did have some students that chose to move from in-person to virtual, mostly at the secondary level. And we were able to accomplish the majority of this increase in students by making some staffing changes at the elementary level. Thanks goes out to our administrative team and the HEA leadership team for collaborating together to getting this done in a very short period of time. So thanks to all those individuals that helped make that happen. Just a couple other things. The CDC came out on Friday with new guidance for K-12 schools. They did revise the physical distancing recommendation to reflect at least 3 feet between students in classroom and provided clearer guidance when the greater distance, such as 6 feet, is recommended. They also removed the recommendation for physical barriers. We did buy a bunch of barriers prior to this, so we are going to continue to use them as we believe that that's a continued mitigation strategy for our students. And then lastly, I just want to note that next week, which is the week before spring break, we will be changing our learning days to Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with asynchronous learning on Thursday. And then Friday, April 2nd, we'll start the beginning of spring break and continue on into the end of the next week. And then the schedule will revert back to normal after spring break, starting April 12th, with the exception of Hazlet High School, and they will have an altered schedule to accommodate testing. And I believe some information is coming out from the high school if it's not already been to our high school parents. So a lot of changes going on. And then, as I mentioned, we'll revert back to our regular schedule after April 12th. So that's just a few snippets of what went on today. It was exciting to see a lot more students, a lot more traffic amongst the community, but we're happy to have more students back in school.
Questions from board members? Greg Bird.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify, Steve, you mentioned 210 were added to come back. Is that over and above what we had originally anticipated due to the adjustments you made in staffing?
That was 210 that were receiving virtual and wanted to come back in person.
Okay.
So that's over and above what we had prior to this week, starting the new schedule.
Thank you. And do do we have? I know. I think last week there was a request, or maybe it was one of the letters that we got. I may have been unclear. I can't remember. Do we have a breakdown of who yet was unable to come back and by building?
We do. We're still working through those numbers right now because we're getting calls even as of today. But at this point, there's really only a handful of students at elementary that were not able to come back in, although we did offer some of those students additional in-person options, switching schools from Murphy to Raleigh if there was some room available, and some of those chose to stay online. So we were able to pretty much accommodate all of the changes requested. There were a few that were not, but we did make some other adjustments to try to get some of those students back too. So.
Thank you, Steve. And one more, if I could, at least for right now, maybe later there'll be more, but one more. My last question has to do with the testing of athletes. I know the state is asking now for weekly testing. When does that begin, Steve?
I believe it starts with spring sports, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure of the actual date, but I can find out.
Okay, thank you.
Talk a little bit about, is everybody back that is coming back into the buildings as of today, or are there some of the classrooms like that are moving from virtual to in person? Are those coming back next Monday? I wasn't sure where we were with that timeline.
So it just all depends on what the arrangement were. Most of the kids are back this week, but we do have some that are transitioning next week. We have a few more teachers that are coming in to teach in person. And so we gave a little time for that transition.
Thank you.
Other questions? I appreciate the efforts made to bring the students back in who wanted to, including providing options that they may not have been ideal options, but I'm glad that we were able to come up with some potentially creative solutions to that issue. All right, well, if we don't have any additional questions, we can move on to our correspondence and comments from the public. Ms. Wheeler, any correspondence since last week?
Yes, just a couple. We heard from Susan Billy regarding the length of class times and potential snack breaks at the middle school and high school levels. And we received a link from Jason Kilday regarding the 3 feet social distancing. And since last week, that was all I had for correspondence.
All right, thank you very much. So we will move on to our public comment section. For anyone who's interested in speaking this evening, if you're online with us, I don't see anybody who's just calling in over the phone, but for those who are logged in online with Zoom, we ask you to go to the participants icon and click the, depends on your feature. Look for the raise hand feature. It might be under the participants icon, or it might be across the bottom of your toolbar. By raising your hand, we will call on you in the order that we see you, and Mr. Casson will unmute you. Each individual is given no more than 5 minutes to speak on a topic or issue or question of their choosing. This is not an interactive forum. It is an opportunity for board members to hear from the public, and wherever appropriate, questions or concerns may also be forwarded or referred to administrators or other staff for additional follow-up. And just in case we do have anybody calling in that I missed, you are able to send an email to the address as follows: webmaster@hazlitt.k12.mi.us. Mr. Casson is monitoring that inbox, and so if we do have anything pop up, that will be read out loud on your behalf. So we'll move into the comments, and I'm showing Riley. Once you are unmuted, if you could please confirm your full first and last name, because we recognize that screen names don't always fully identify our speakers.
Hi, yes. Oops, sorry.
Riley, it looks like you are unmuted, so you have 5 minutes. Welcome to the Hazlitt Board of Education.
Hi, thank you. Kelly Upton. I have spoken in the last couple of weeks, and my emotions were extremely high. With that being said, I do want to just make it publicly known that the school district was able to get my elementary child into the school. He is not switching teachers, which is just absolutely amazing. He would be one of the ones that would start next week, Molly. So he will start on the 29th, because since she was a online teacher, of course, she has to get her classroom ready. But I just wanted to thank everybody. I wanted to thank the administrative, the board, transportation, nutrition, just everybody across the board for trying to get our kids back. It took a really, really long time, and emotions have been really, really high for a year. But I think that we're moving in the right direction. So I just wanted to say thank you. I also just wanted to send a quick comment about my high school child. Today he experienced the first day with the 85 minutes per class. He said it was really, really long, but this is what it is. And we're going to make it work, and the teachers will make it work. But I did want just to let the public know that that is the current feedback on that particular schedule, that the 85 minutes was really rough, especially when gym is your first hour. So that's pretty much all I have. And again, just thank you for everybody with their hard work that has gone into this. And hopefully we'll have a better 2021-22 school year. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I do not show anybody. Oh, wait, we just got a hand pop up. Screen name of Trevor Goldberg. We'll have Mr. Casson unmute you. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey there, this is Terry Goldberg, just checking in, calling in. I have a question for Mr. Cook and the board. So I would like to a response as to the $1,700 promised to each teacher to return. Was that a prerequisite in order to get that money to return, for them to return back to school at the scheduled time of today? And was that approved? Was that voted on by the board and approved by them, of course? And if that is what's going on, I'm all about people getting paid. I really am. But I was wondering about the pay for last year, for the last 3 months of school last year. Were they paid for that? Did they take advantage? Were they able to take advantage of the extra $600 of unemployment that was given out from the state of Michigan for unemployment purposes? I'm just trying to figure that out. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to see. Mr. Cook before has mentioned that politics, to myself and other people, have been in play with keeping kids out of school. So I want to know, is this part of it? Because now that we're back to partial school the 22nd and the money's been promised, then now after the spring break, now we're back to a regular schedule, which is pretty quick after that negotiation was made. So, and I'm glad to see Mr. Gotts on here. Maybe he can elaborate to me later on about that negotiation. But that's my question to you guys: is everybody in the community aware of that negotiation, and was it approved by the board? And what's the background meeting, and what was the request from the unions to go back to school? We've been doing this for a year now, and Lance, it just kills me because Lansing Christian, they were in school from the very beginning of school year until Thanksgiving, and they had to take a break because they've had some COVID issues there. Then they took that month off and then went back the 2nd of January. They were full days before, they're full days now, but yet we're just now getting there. So I'd really like to know who dropped the ball, because we've got there's between the board and Mr. Cook. And another thing too, in the very beginning of the year, Mr. Cook said that he did not give a 60-day extension on the building. And it was one of the reasons, it wasn't a reason why we didn't go back to school, but yet the contractors and the project managers did say that this Hazlet Public Schools gave them a 60-day extension. So that was 2 months out of the school year that these kids didn't get to take advantage of education. And if politics are at play, Mr. Cook, it's your job to take care of these kids and keep them safe and keep politics out of the schools. And if it's in play and you're not in control of it, then I'm not sure you didn't do your due diligence for the kids. And I go same with the board, same with Mrs. Lemmer, same deal. So I look forward to your responses in writing about that $1,700 and was that a prerequisite for the teachers going back in person? Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for your time. I'm looking and I do not currently see any additional hands. Mr. Cassidy, oh, there's a hand. I've got Sonia Lurch, if we can unmute her. Mr. Casson, if you can get Sonia's, there we go. Looks like you're unmuted. Welcome to the board meeting.
I have not talked in a very long time. I just wanted to say thank you. I work at Rallia. I work in the office at Rallia. Some of you will know me. I see some staff on here. I want to say a quick thank you to all of our supervisors, all of the principals, all of the administrators, all of the teachers. I firsthand have seen how much effort, how much time from their families that they've taken to make this happen. As you all know, I wanted to see kids back on day one, and not everybody wanted to come back. Families weren't ready. I think most families are now, and thank you to the teachers that are coming back next week, at least at our building. It's made a world of difference to get more kids in. And I just appreciate all of your effort, every one of you, board members, again, administrators. I have never seen more hours put into it. I know there's been talk in past weeks of, well, just put that schedule together. Oh my gosh, it's not just a schedule. It's a schedule that has 5,000 fingers to it, and one schedule affects so many other schedules. Mr. Polisak, our new special ed director, my gosh, call him the PPE king. I have never seen somebody in my building dropping off more PPE, and he cares. And so people, our administrators care and our teachers care, and I just want you to know that. So that's just from my perspective as an employee of the district and somebody that really is happy to see kids back. I feel like we did a great job today. It 8 minutes, it took us 8 minutes to do pickup today. I was so happy with that. So anyways, thanks parents for being patient, because the line went out to Hazlet Road, and the middle school line went all the way down School Street, all the way to the end. So I don't know how they did it, but it looked painful. So just thank you. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Lurch. Appreciate your time. Oops, I hit a button. Anybody else? Again, not seeing any raised hands. So I'll turn to Mr. Casson just to check. Do we have anyone who's used the webmaster email?
No, we have not received any emails.
Okay, then I think we are good to move on from public comment. Thank you, everybody who participated. Next item on the agenda are board reports. And Mr. Byrd, sorry to catch you off guard again, but you're first again. Forgot to switch you up.
No worries. Thank you. Yes, the Finance and Facilities Committee met on Wednesday, March 10th. The major item of discussion was the return, the added hours and return to school update by Superintendent Cook. We talked about the updated schedules. We talked about how the legislation from the state mandating at least 20 hours of in-person instruction by the 22nd impacted our timeline and our schedules. And we talked about the as I think Superintendent Cook discussed tonight, how we could move additional students who were wanting to come back to get back. And so I see, again, we discussed that and we see the move toward making that happen going on as well. Obviously talked about items such as transportation in this new schedule, talked about snack time or lunch time, depending upon the building that you were in. I think that's some of the details we discussed about the return to learning update. So that's it, I think, for our committee for the last time.
Any questions for finance and facilities? Thank you. Also, both committees talked about the letter of agreement. Did that happen at the 8th as well? Yeah.
Apologies, yes.
Nope, that's okay. All right, so we'll move on to personnel, policy and personnel.
We met on Friday, March 12th. Again, our main agenda item was the return to school with more in-person time, including how the schedules had been adjusted to meet that 20-hour-a-week standard for both elementary and our secondary. We discussed all the transportation plans and the different pieces of information that needed to be communicated from the schools back to the parents when we were going to make a decision last Monday, just so that everything could fall into place, or as much could fall into place by this Monday. That included, we also had the letter of agreement that was part of the materials for the meeting. The only additional thing that we discussed is I let the members of my committee know that we have set a meeting with Neola that's coming up in April. So I think that was the only other update we had.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, we can move on to item number 3 on board reports, Hazlitt's Voice for Change.
Yeah, so we do have a meeting scheduled tomorrow afternoon at 3:30 with that group. So we're very excited for the opportunity to speak with them. I believe there's at least one board member who will be attending that meeting, if not more. So hopefully I can report at our next meeting of the things that we talked about and how we're going to move forward with that group. That's it.
Great. And the survey, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion survey closed Friday, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Yeah, I emailed Dr. Flanau this evening to kind of see how it goes and what our next steps from that, gathering that data will bring. So I've yet to hear back from him, but I will report to the board once I find out.
Okay, so you don't have data on perhaps how many respondents or anything?
Not yet. He gave me early on, but it's not up to date. So I've not seen the most recent data since it's closed.
Great, we look forward to hearing from you. All right, we'll move on to items from board members. Feels like we've met a lot this month already, so maybe we've we're all talked out.
I was just real quick. I should have said this during the responsive return, but I had kind of forgotten. But again, with all of our teachers and principals and communicating, trying to do all this, and then I just wanted to recognize Mrs. Frias at Wilkshire. Not only did they have this whole new schedule, but they also had some technical difficulties earlier today and trying to help their virtual students. So there were emails early this morning saying, we're working on it, hold on, here's what you can do. And it went to everybody. So even those of us whose children were in person, we still kind of had a sense of what was going on if there were any other difficulties. So I just appreciated, in the midst of all the other kind of changes that were going on and all the other craziness, there were at least 2 communications from Mrs. Frias today. So as if this wasn't going to be hard enough, having technical difficulties on top of it, but just wanted to acknowledge the way that everybody at Wilkeshire handled it.
Great. I guess, and I'll just sort of building on that, echo appreciation that we've heard this evening, because bottom line is we're still continuing to educate our students amidst all of these transitions. And whether you've agreed with our pace all along or not, that has remained a focus for the board and our educators. So I'm personally thrilled that we have more people in, and it sounds like we've accommodated pretty much everybody who wanted to come back in person. And if they weren't there today, they'll be there by next week. So that's very exciting. Anybody else?
Just one more comment regarding the pickup and drop off, specifically at the middle school. It was a little bit slow, but it was extremely organized, safe, and people were very patient. So appreciative of everyone's patience in that regard. It will get smoother, and we just appreciate everybody. Principal and assistant principal are both out there every morning and every afternoon, seeing kids get in and out of their cars. And there's someone at the corner there monitoring traffic. So again, it's very safe and organized, even though it's slow. So that's what's most important.
Great point. Thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, we can go to our consent agenda. There are 5 items on there this evening. I'll read through them. And if any member wants to have any of the items pulled for clarification or discussion, please let me know. We have approval of the minutes of the March 8th regular Board of Education meeting. We have minutes of the March 10th Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. We have approval of the minutes of the March 12th Policy and Personnel Committee meeting. We have approval of the minutes of the March 15th special board meeting. And we have approval of the minutes of the March 15th closed session meeting. Anyone need any of those items pulled? Seeing and hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion Wheeler, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second Maury, thank you. There's no need for discussion. We'll move straight to a vote. All in favor, I'll do a roll call. Bird?
Aye.
Collins?
Yes.
Mashad?
Yes.
Maury?
Yes.
Pulverento?
Yes.
Wheeler?
Yes.
And Lemmer is yes. The motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. We just have a couple of announcements here. We have a Finance and Facilities Committee meeting scheduled for March 23rd at 9 a.m. That would be tomorrow. This is going to be held virtually. We have a Policy and Personnel Committee meeting scheduled for March 26th. That will be at 8:30 a.m. also being held remotely. And we do have a regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting on April 12th at 7 p.m. Watch for details on that, but I do believe that members will be meeting in person. However, due to space limitations and continuing guidelines from the health department, participation by the public will remain virtual, but please watch for further communication on that. And next, at the request of Superintendent Cook, we've been asked to go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to Section 8A of the Open Meetings Act. There will be no action taken. It's strictly a discussion, but I do need a motion to move into closed session. Did anyone make that motion for us?
I move we go into closed session.
I'll second.
Motion Pulverento, second by Collins. I will do a roll call on that as well. We'll go backwards. Wheeler?
Yes.
Pulverento? I think I saw yes.
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Mashad,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
and Byrd.
Yes.
Lemmer is a yes as well. So we are moving into closed session. Members of the public, if you want to stay, you will be put back into the waiting room until we're done. You are welcome to stay, but we only have one action item after that, but we'll call you back in if anyone is still hanging around with us. All right, so we are coming out of closed session at 8:31. No action was taken by the board. We do have action items are next up on the agenda. And I have a, well, does anyone have a motion? Greg?
I move to approve the administrative contract renewals as recommended by Superintendent Cook.
I'll second.
Motion by Greg B, second by Greg M. Any questions or discussions? This is contract related. We'll do a roll call. Byrd,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Mashad,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Pulverento,
Yes.
Wheeler,
Yes.
and Lemmer is yes. Motion carries 7-0. And for our next resolution, I have a resolution to put before the board and would entertain a motion to adopt. The regular board meeting, Board of Education of Hazlet Public Schools, held this evening, March 22nd. Whereas Susan, whereas Susan Gillings is employed with the Hazlet Public Schools as the Associate Superintendent pursuant to an employment contract, which contract expires and terminates on June 30th, 2021. And Superintendent has presented the board with a written recommendation dated March 22nd, 2021, that the board consider non-renewal of Ms. Gillings' employment contract. The board has reviewed and considered the superintendent's written recommendation as well as the reasons for the recommendation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board determines that there is sufficient reason to consider the non-renewal of Ms. Gillings' employment contract. The board authorizes and directs the superintendent to promptly provide Ms. Gillings with written notice of this resolution stating that the board is considering non-renewal of her contract, together with a written statement of the reasons why the board is considering the non-renewal. The superintendent is further directed to notify Ms. Gillings that she will be given the opportunity to meet with not less than a majority of the board to discuss the reasons stated in the written statement. The meeting may be conducted in an open or closed session as elected by Ms. Gillings. The superintendent is authorized to establish the date, time, and place of the board meeting to discuss the reasons set forth in the written statement. The reasons for considering non-renewal of Ms. Gillings' contract are those reasons contained in the superintendent's letters to Ms. Gillings dated March 18th, 2021 and March 22nd, 2021. Those reasons are incorporated by reference and adopted by the board as its own reasons for considering non-renewal of Ms. Gillings' contract. This resolution would be adopted pursuant to section 1229 of the revised school code MCL 380.1229 and is consistent with Ms. Gillings' employment contract. Is there well, all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with this resolution are rescinded. Is there a motion on the floor to adopt that resolution? Or may I have a motion, I should say?
I move to support the resolution as read in by President Lemmer.
Yeah.
There's a motion by Byrd, a second by Pulverento. Any questions or comments about the resolution and the motion on the floor? Seeing and hearing none, I'll do another roll call vote. Wheeler?
Yes.
Pulverento?
Yes.
Maury?
Yes.
Mashad?
Yes.
Collins?
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
and Lemmer is yes. Motion carries 8-0. And that is the last item on our agenda for the evening. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
All right, we got a motion, Paul Varento, second by Collins. Any questions, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 That's all ayes, any noes. Motion carries 8-0. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank
Night.
you.
Bye.
Bye.